Hey, what is going on, guys? TalkNorwichCity here, back for a brand new video. Introducing the new podcast me, Seb Ward and Charlie Hatch have made. It's called A Wee Chat, based off Alex Neil's Wee Chats with the players, I guess. So the podcast is being published on SoundCloud. It'll be on iTunes in a couple of days. I'll link them in the description. The iTunes isn't up quite yet because it needs to be authorised and stuff like that, but it will be on iTunes very soon. So I thought I'd put it on YouTube for a bit as well. I'm not expecting it to get many views or anything, but if you guys want to see the podcast on YouTube on a regular basis, let me know. But if not, I'll probably just upload the first few episodes to get you guys over to the iTunes account. But I think it's a really good, decent podcast. Quite funny in parts. Bit of a tactical look at things, and I think it's a nice change. I know there's some good Norwich City podcasts out there already, like John and Dan's and people like that, but we're a bit different, and we wanted to bring something to the podcasting world for Norwich City. So enjoy. This is the audio from the first episode ever, and yeah, enjoy it.
Hello and welcome to this brand new podcast on Talk Norwich City and also iTunes called A Wee Chat. You might be wondering where that term comes from. We're not talking about Urine tonight. We're going to be talking about Norwich City, and of course the Wee Chat comes from Alex Neil's famous phrase. Alongside me I have the wonderful Seb Ward, known for his calmness, level-headedness, and of course his wonderful articles online across multiple Norwich City websites, and Charlie Hatch, one of the only Norwich City fans living in America. A nice little combination we've got going. We might have some guests on in the future. In today's podcast, we're going to be discussing the Swansea match. We're going to be looking at some quotes of the week, the chant of the week, and also the question of the week. Lots and lots of weeks in there. So, guys, how are you, first of all?
Yeah, very good. I mean, a win at the weekend certainly helped my mood in general. It's an important win going forward because of the month that we've got ahead. But yeah, I mean, the days are getting darker, the leaves are falling off the trees, but it's not too bad.
No, it's not too bad at all. I'm still buzzing off it. Charlie, how are you, mate?
I'm alright, getting along. I forgot what a clean sheet felt like, so haven't seen that since Middlesbrough.
Of course, that's a long time ago. And what a day that was. So yeah, a clean sheet, as John Rogers calls it in the interview I've done with him, a clean shit. So yeah, opening thoughts, Charlie. I mean, it was a wonderful win over Swansea, wasn't it?
Yeah, you looked at the first half. It was a bit dull. It didn't look like either team really wanted to have any chances. I know Jerome put the header over the bar, but other than that, there wasn't too much into it. And then, really, when Mbokani came into the match, started injecting a bit of aggression and looked like some chances would be created. And obviously, the goal wasn't that great, but it was enough for 3 points, and that's something that we haven't seen in, 5 weeks now? 6 weeks?
Definitely, yeah. It's been a while, hasn't it? I mean, Seb, a lot of people on my fan cams were quite pessimistic, actually. I mean, I was absolutely buzzing coming out of it, but I think the main reason that people were a bit down was because they saw Alex Neil's substitution of Mbokani coming on for Jerome as a negative one. But what did you make of that substitution?
Well, I think his hand was partly forced by the fact we didn't have the attacking options of Redmond or Jarvis, and the defensive solidity that we'd seen in that first half. Although it wasn't pretty, we weren't very attractive coming forward, and it was very Houghton-esque in many ways. But at least we had that solidity. I don't think he wanted to meddle with that too much and change too much. And in the end, we managed to keep that solidity, and then just about get a goal from a corner. And I think there's a sense that Alex Neil is sort of learning from his experience in the Premier League. We saw against Newcastle how he was a bit naive to take off Tetty, bring on Houlihan, and then we ultimately lost 6-2. And the same way that we've been losing games, we've been deserving to win or get points from, and so far it's not been going too well. This Saturday against Swansea, we overcame that and we got the 3 points. Even though we only had 32% possession, it's all about the points. He delivered a game plan that got those points, and therefore, in my opinion, it's a job well done.
Yeah, definitely. A key thing I take from that is, Charlie, we've seen all throughout Alex Neil's sort of short Norwich City career, he's definitely learnt from mistakes. We've seen it this season, but last season especially with, remember the loss against Brentford, and he bounced back with a win, I think against Bournemouth in the next game. But he's done that continuously, and that's certainly a pleasing thing, isn't it?
No, it really is. And I think if you look at the team, you can tell it evolves. While the players might not necessarily, like against City, for example, that's a match that, fans are upset with, come away with a loss. But then you see that he adds new players. Obviously, Russell Martin couldn't play, but brings in wisdom for Whittaker. Looks like he brings in O'Neill. You're thinking, is it going to be too defensive? And it worked out just fine. So the evolution of the squad, one of the things I've noticed is the positioning of the guys. It's not just like the guys are wandering around. I watched Newcastle Bournemouth right before the match, and it was funny because Newcastle was just wandering around. There was no positioning. You couldn't tell if they were trying to play 3 up top, 5 in the back, because Colaccini would go forward like David Luiz, and then you got Norwich that everything's structured. This is exactly how it's going to be. And if you look at Premier League survival or that match with only, you said 32% possession, and you see that, and I mean, if you watch the match as a neutral, you might say Norwich, sat back, but no, it was exactly what they wanted to do. So that evolution has been nice, and when they play Chelsea, I'm sure something else will come out that Alex Neil has brought up that is going to work on his end. Whether the players can execute is up to them.
Yeah, definitely. Seb, I think that's an interesting point raised by Charlie, actually, is that the fluidity in the team has certainly changed. I mean, we saw a very free-flowing style of football in the Championship, and we got away with that to a certain extent. I mean, scraped us through promotion, but we started off with a very fluid take on the game in the early stages of the season, and got some decent results. But in the past few weeks, we've really struggled to play that kind of football and be really punished. I mean, the key game in that run was certainly Newcastle away, and as Charlie said, Newcastle look very fluid and they're roaming about. But do you think Alex Neil's kind of learnt that he needs to change the way he plays football in order to grind out results?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at Bournemouth, their result this weekend, they lost 1-0 to Newcastle. And they sort of did so in the manner that we've been losing games, dominating, playing some nice attacking, attractive football, but not getting the results that go with those performances. And ultimately, I think at the start of the season, we benefited off sort of the momentum from the Wembley Cup final and the buzz around the club. But that's petered out. I think we've been a bit unlucky in some games. But then, obviously, it's come down to some individual errors that have also foiled the good collective performances. I think you said the key game was at Newcastle. I think the key game was at West Ham. Tetty conceding that free kick and then us drawing. If we'd won that game, it'd have been completely different because West Ham were doing so well at the time and still are doing so. And we wouldn't have then had this whole, Norwich haven't won in however many games, and it started to spiral, started to snowball into a negative thing, to even the extent where you've got some of the very extreme fans, I say extreme because it's definitely not a representation of the majority, saying they want Alex Neil out, which to me is absurd. But we've got to put faith in the manager. I think even if we went down, I think I'd keep him because he's young, he's hungry, and as we've seen so far this season, he wants to learn, he wants to adapt, and he wants to do what's best for this team. And I think he'll keep us up. And by the weekend's showing that he can adapt, he can be versatile, I think we'll do just that.
Yeah, Seb, that's an interesting point. And even through the really sticky run of form we had, the defeats against, we hadn't won in 7, it wasn't a great run. But even in them performances, I look at Newcastle, the 6-2 defeat away from home, didn't actually think that was too bad. I mean, a couple of things didn't go in our way, and we caught Newcastle and Wijnaldum on an incredibly on-form day. The only defeat I really wasn't too pleased with was the West Brom game at home, where we didn't look great defensively or great going forwards. But every other game we've done well in a certain area, and it looks like we've evolved and Alex Neil has learnt from. And I think, Charlie, the game against Swansea sort of showed to us that Alex Neil has learnt from them games, and not only that, but the team has learnt a certain way of grinding out results and a way of winning that we didn't really have before.
No, certainly. It's something that even if you go back 2 years ago when they got relegated, I think there's a difference between playing defensive-minded football because you're playing defensively and you think that, okay, if we sit back, we'll get our chances, we'll capitalize. And that's what Norwich did against Swansea. Whereas with Chris Hughton, it might say, let's play for a draw today. If we can get that, so be it. And I think that's the biggest transition that I've seen with the club, because while we talk about, because even in the losing spell that was taking place, it's not like they were playing attractive football. And I think part of that, the pessimism that arose was due to that, whereas when we're playing fluid football, just the chances are coming. At the Palace match, obviously Simon Hooper was a big thing, but no one sat around and said, oh, this team needs to be more defensive, I'm not looking confident for the season. The defensive stuff is there. I think Alex Neil, Seb also mentioned, even if we went down, I look at the way he prepares for these matches. I can't see that happening. I think we've got a complete side when everything's clicking. The big thing is getting everything to click, and I think that's what we saw against Swansea, even if it meant that we didn't have as many shots. But I know Swansea didn't have a shot on target, so you can't fault our forwards when Bafétimbi, Gomis, and Andre Ayew have been putting in goals throughout the season, and then that happens.
Yeah, so I think what we can all agree with on the Swansea game was just how big of a game it was. Every single game this season we've looked fairly decent in, but at the end of the day we just need to start winning games, and we've done so at Swansea. And we got a bit of good luck as well, because I thought Clattenburg was very poor, but mainly towards Swansea. They should have had a couple of penalties. Basong was a bit clumsy, and it's chunks of them luck that we do need and we haven't had so far this season. So that was a really promising thing to bring from that Swansea game. A bit of luck and a win. Anyway, I spoke to the fans after the game. Anita, a Talk Norwich City regular, came on, and she was really impressed with Gary O'Neill. Talk Norwich City here with Anita after a 1-0 victory over Swansea. Buzzing after that.
Yeah, what difference 2 halves that was, wasn't it? I mean, the first half was pretty Chris Hughton-esque, pretty poor, no width. We didn't seem to have we had hardly any possession, and our passing rate was poor, pretty poor. 69th minute, on comes Mbokani, rings that free kick, and it just seemed to lift the team up straight away. And then obviously his header towards goal, Howson converted it, put it in, and it was just a different game from then on.
Talking about Gary O'Neill, what a game he had in the middle of the park.
Superb. I do rate him anyway. First of all, I was like, why isn't Malumbu starting? But then I thought, well, actually, no, Gary O'Neill, when he's come on, he is a real workhorse. He really does just keep going on and on and on, and he was superb today.
Good to have a set-piece taker who can beat the first man on corners as well. And we scored from a corner.
Yes, from a corner, from a set-piece and a corner. Perhaps they listened to me last week.
Yeah, scored from a corner, kept a clean sheet. What's going on?
Unbelievable. Let's just hope it is, that turn that we've needed, and next week we go on and beat a team that aren't doing particularly well themselves.
So as you can hear there, Anita was over the moon with the way Gary O'Neill came into the squad. And Seb, would you agree with Anita? I mean, Gary O'Neill to me was one of the key players on the pitch yesterday.
Well, he's the sort of player who just shouts solid at you. He's very experienced. He's
solid.
Bloody hell, that's a bit loud, Jack. I've got Gary O'Neill in one ear, I don't need you in the other. But great in the middle of the park. I thought also he brought another sort of angle when we're coming for set pieces, because he could play the right-footed in-swinging cross, which I think Basong nearly scored from, or Jerome also had that big chance in the first half, that header that went over the bar. Because he's so experienced, he knows what he's doing, and he just calms everything down in the middle of the field. And I think sometimes we try to overplay things in the midfield, and you need a player like O'Neill just to sort of calm things. And he's especially good for when we're playing a more defensive lineup, because he's disciplined, he keeps his position, and because he's in the centre and he keeps his position, that helps everyone else keep their own shape. So yeah, I was really impressed as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think a great point there was his set pieces. I mean, Jerome should have scored. I'm not sure if it was him that whipped it in, but I know Jerome should have scored. But the main thing I want to say there is how much better we were at defending and attacking set pieces yesterday, because I've said all season set pieces are going to be huge for us. I think we had something like 16 corners against West Brom and didn't score one of them.
Yeah.
Or it might have been against Everton or someone. But set pieces, one, we have to defend them, and it's not too difficult. You pick up your man, you clear it. Attacking, I heard Dave Freezer put out on Twitter that our set piece routine was actually brought in by, I forget his name, but our goalkeeper coach. Is it Dean Coyote, something like that. Anyway, our goalkeeper coach brought in a new set piece routine and obviously worked really nicely. But my favourite bit of Gary O'Neill's performance yesterday was his horrendous tackle in the 93rd minute. They're trying to break and he literally just kicked him. He'd run out of energy, his legs were gone, and it was the worst tackle I think I've ever seen. He just kicked him, stopped the play, got a booking, moved on. We won. Lovely jubbly. Anyway, David was on and David just absolutely loved Dieumerci Mbokani. Here with the man himself. It's been a while. David, mate, what a win that was.
It was a win.
That's what we needed.
Yeah, that's all. No, performance today didn't really matter. It was getting the result really. And like I was just saying to the boys around the corner there, I mean, if there was a 0-0 draw today, we would have still been last on match of the day. It was shocking, wasn't it?
Oh, it was really poor. I mean, what do you think changed the game in that second half? Because first half,
Mbokani on.
It was
Straight away.
Yeah. What do you think he done? Because you don't really recognise what he does out there, but for some reason, the complexity of the game has changed.
I don't know whether you noticed it. You're at this end now, though. Yeah. John Ruddy's kick with about 98 minutes on the clock that he put into the corner there and told Mbokani to run onto it. That's what he does. He runs onto a ball. He'll never give up on it. I know Jerome does that, but Jerome's a different kind of player. And Mbokani actually, I think you'll find that Mbokani actually got the assist for the goal.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah.
So I mean, he's already proven his point for coming on, hasn't he?
You can tell that Mbokani's really sort of played at the high levels. He's played Champions League football.
Yeah. I mean, when you looked at the first half, and for even half of the second half, we got no one in the box. But as soon as we put Mbokani on, we've got people in the box. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. Defence back four. Who needs Russell Martin? Yeah. Hey, come on, let's be fair about it. Yeah. I mean, Russell Martin's been a downfall for us this season, and I will say that on camera. He's been bloody shocking. However, today, back four, I thought Wisdom played really well today.
Yeah. So that was David, showing a bit of love for Dieumerci, as all Norwich fans like to do. Dieumerci is a very lovable person. Charlie, do you want to show some love for Dieumerci, or do you disagree? Did you think Mbokani was a bit of a wasted substitution yesterday?
No, he came in. I think he was the big difference maker as an impact sub. And I have to give him some credit. At first, when he came on, I think it was against Bournemouth, was his first match, and I was a little hesitant because the ball came into the area. I don't know if you remember, it was late in the match.
Yeah.
And he missed the sitter. And it's one of those things, if Lewis Graben misses it, everybody is on Graben. And here's the new guy, and obviously since then he scored. He's put together some clinical finishes that his first goal even is something that we hadn't seen from Gary Hooper, Ricky Van Wolfswinkel a couple of years ago. And no, he's been good. He struggled to get into the box at times, and I think that's a complaint that everybody's had. But when he is on it, he creates a bit of danger, and it's something that Jerome in some cases can't offer. So it's a different attack. I think when Mbokani's there, it almost opens up the back line a little bit more. Nothing against Jerome. I think Jerome's probably the guy you should start with. But Mbokani off the bench has worked pretty well, and I think he was the big difference yesterday. Obviously, is that technically an assist? If he
that is an assist, yeah.
And I mean, he set up that goal. He was unmarked at the back post. And I think that's, for him going forward, his big thing is if he can communicate with the players.
Yeah.
I think that's something, getting in the box or something like that. I just don't know if they can communicate and say, right, get in this position or that, as opposed to someone in French speaking.
Yeah. It's an interesting point, actually, the communication barrier, because obviously he doesn't speak full English yet. And I'm lucky enough to sit on the front row of the Barclays, so you sort of hear some of the things that the players are saying. And that Bournemouth game was his first game, and I think it was Wes who was playing in that number 10 position, and he literally just grunted. It was the funniest thing I've ever heard. He just grunted at Wes. It was like, just play me in, but he sort of just grunted because he didn't know just how to say sort of pass it or anything. But no, I think, Seb, one of the things I really like about Mbokani is his intelligence. If you listen to it on the radio or don't watch the games, you probably wouldn't be able to appreciate it as much. But it's obvious that we've got some talent in this team, not as much as other teams, and we'll have to rely on really just hard work and grit at the end of the day. But I think Mbokani's a special player. The way he runs, the way he moves. I've been praising him all season, but it's evident that this guy's played European football, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I'm going to make a comparison here that you're not going to like, but in the same way that we saw Van Wolfswinkel always making those impressive runs and not always getting the ball, it's like that. But obviously, Mbokani, he has that same intelligence, having played at a more technical level. He's got a great touch on him, despite being such a bulldozing character. You know, he's really strong at holding the ball up, and I think that's what was so impressive in those sort of later stages of the game, because we needed someone just to make it stick up front, and he did just that. And I think that's where he's superior to Jerome. I think he offers a bit more of a target man, but as well also having the more technical side to his game. So I think he could be a really, really big player for us this season. The only thing is, like, his work rate. I think sometimes he strolls about a bit, but I don't know whether that's... I haven't really seen him play enough first team games starting from the in the first team to see whether he's properly running for stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do think he is an exciting prospect, and I think he'll get a fair few more goals for us this season.
All right. Well, I was going to mention. Did you guys notice? Yeah, I think it was stoppage time. So I think it was. Do you remember the 2-on-1 that he had, or the 1-on-1 at first?
The one where he was like falling over for 40 yards.
Yeah, exactly. He's fallen over. I think it was Gary O'Neill that he played in eventually. And then instead of just charging at the goal, City started passing it around. And I think they took it to the corner outside. And immediately, I mean, you could tell, I thought that's when I knew we'd win. But when it happened, I'm thinking, all right, everybody else that we have in terms of forwards, who's bombing at the goal? Jerome would keep running, grabbing Lafferty. And the guy, again, he was falling over, but he at least had the awareness to know, see out the win, as opposed to doing something stupid and get beat on a counter.
No, then we saw him at the other end making a brilliant defensive header to help out the team. And I saw him sprinting back as well in those sort of dying moments, because everyone was trying to protect the 1-0 lead, and he was part of that. So it's not like he wasn't, fighting for the team. And you could see how happy he was when Howson scored and those two came together. I mean, I can't imagine Mbokani knew much about what Howson was saying in his broad Yorkshire accent, but I think the words "yes, come on, we've scored a goal" probably got through.
I think you mentioned that defensive header. I'm not sure if you'd call this cheating or awareness to the game, but he'd headed it out, and it's fallen to, I think, Swansea's right back, and the Norwich defence are all over the place. We've just cleared a corner. We're not set up well at all. So Mbokani just lays there and holds his head. He's obviously not hurt. It didn't even go anywhere near his head, and he just lies there. And obviously, if the ref thinks there's a head injury, he's got to stop the game. Clattenburg stops the game, and we were able to get back into shape. So that last 5 minutes really showed his awareness and his ability to cheat as well. So
that's part of the culture of the game. I mean,
Yeah.
Strikers do it against us. We do it against other teams. It's just
Wes Houlihan at Watford last year.
Of course.
yeah.
Right,
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
We don't care if it's cheating as long as
a
it's
hell of a
for us.
dive.
Yeah. So let's move on to the question of the week. I tweeted out earlier my question of the week, and this week's question is: if you could take one Norwich City player for lunch, who would it be and why? So we've got a fair few responses. A devoured one on Twitter said, "I'd like to say Laugh K, his Twitter name, Kai Lafferty, but I think I'd be laughing too much to actually eat. Yeah, that's a problem." Josh Roper says it has to be Tete. Want him to teach me his dance. Not sure what kind of lunch that is. Maybe a lunch on the move. Maybe a Pret to take out, something like that. Matthew Cox says Kai Lafferty because he's a true lad. Kai Lafferty is the definition of lad.
Apart from he searches his own Twitter name, own name on Twitter rather.
The hashtag lad.
Maybe you could do that over lunch, get your phone out, tweet, search your own name. I'm sure that'd be fun. Simon Curlew says Robert Fleck would like his thoughts on his volley against Millwall. Not too sure how long that conversation would last, but who knows. Jamie says Mbokani, no reason needed. Not sure how you'd communicate, maybe through...
What would you talk about? It's not sign language. I mean...
I'd probably just smile at him and just...
Would you do the Wes Houlihan grunt?
I'd just grunt and smile at him. I'm sure it'd be cool. Kathy Blake says Grant Holt. He'd probably kill whatever lunch was with his bare hands. Yeah, fair play. Stephen Flack says Lafferty would be the best night ever. I'm sure a night out with Lafferty down Prince of Wales Road would pop off. Who else have we got? Tim Ullman with a sensible option, saying Gary O'Neill comes across on Twitter as a decent family man and is a very good golfer. So maybe a bacon butty to take out on the golf course with Gary O'Neill. We've got a few more Kyle Laffertys. Somebody included the word banter. That goes hand in hand with Kyle Lafferty.
I say Lewis grabbing on the fact I'd like to ask him about the whole Rotherham hotel situation. But then, if he got annoyed and wanted to walk out, I wouldn't be too bothered, because going by his press conferences and post-match interviews, he's pretty boring anyway. So
yeah, he's a bit of a prick, isn't he? Really?
Oh, harsh.
No, not a massive fan. I did like his goal against who was it? Charlton last season. That was a nice goal. But no, I wouldn't want to share it. A nice ham and I'm not sure what sandwich I'd go for. Maybe a BLT or something. Wouldn't want to share it with Graben though. Thomas Kemp said Mbokani. Wonder what he likes to eat first. Maybe a Nando's.
Cheeky Nando's. I was going to get that in there.
Cheeky Nando's and Mbokani. And finally, Alex Gloag says Basong. Just Basong. I'm sure you could talk a lot with Basong. Charlie, who would you go with? Who would you take out for a lunch date?
That's who I wanted, Basong, actually.
Yeah?
Because it's so random. I mean, I'm in love with Alex Tete, so I talk about him all the time. I'm trying to avoid him, so of course it'd be a good time. But I think Basong would be the amount of stories that he probably has saved up. I think even asking on the serious note, when you finished your meal and you're asking him to pay for the check, is what happened with Watford or with Neil Adams. Sorry, when he dropped out completely after being the captain.
Yeah. No, I think Basong's probably good value.
I'd ask him if he's still got those guns that he took some Instagram photos with.
That is the definition of lad.
Well,
I think I'd take... Well, yeah. We don't promote gun violence.
No, we
here
do
on
not.
WeChat. No, guns aren't cool. I'd probably take out Ryan Bennett, mainly because he went to my high school, so that's a nice icebreaker. We could talk about high school. Did he enjoy it? Did he not? Also, I knew Ryan Bennett's PE teacher, and Ryan Bennett didn't get into the school team because apparently he was a bit cocky. So, we've broken the ice. We've moved on to maybe a bowl of soup to start. I'd then ask Ryan Bennett to get his guitar out, play me a couple of songs. I know he does like a couple of songs. He thinks he's Ed Sheeran. By this time, we're on to the main meal. Discuss Norwich City, who he likes, who he doesn't. Maybe a bit of gossip. And by the time we're on dessert, I think we're pretty good mates by this time. I'm sort of edging him to pay the bill. I'm getting a bit more gossip. Might get his phone number for a few more future chats. I think Ryan Bennett would be good value. So that's the Norwich fans. I think the common consensus was most people would take Kyle Lafferty out for lunch, but I don't think you could take him to a classy outfit. I think you'd have to take him down Prince of Wales for a greasy kebab and a bit of banter with Kyle. So, next bit of a wee chat is Chant of the Week. Seb, what is the Chant of the Week?
I believe it's a Dieumerci Mbokani chant, as seen on Talk Norwich City. Am I wrong? Right?
Yeah, no, we'll go with the Mbokani chant. One of about 60 I've created in the past week. All of my spare time goes to Mbokani chant creation.
Yep.
Spend your free time how you like, but I must admit it's a good way to spend it. So this is the chant of the week. It was chanted after this win at Swansea. Just take it in, enjoy it.
Since he was young, Dieumerci has wanted to play for City. Oh, 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 since he was young, Dieumerci has wanted to play for City. Oh!
So that was the chant of the week, sang by yours truly. I thought it was pretty decent. If you've got any chants, send them in via Twitter or fax. You can't send a chant on fax, can you? I suppose if you've got a fax machine, you could do.
Not unless you've got any social credibility.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong in having no social credibility. So that was the chant of the week, a new one coming every week. Next thing in the Wee Chat is quote of the week. And this comes from a good friend of the Wee Chat, a good guy in general, host of Canary Call and Radio Norfolk, legend himself, Mr. Rob Butler. He has tweeted out, Kieran Dyer is ready to appear in the TV series I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Another star on the shirt of Ipswich if he wins that, guaranteed. So we are in the Premier League, but it's not too late to give Ipswich a bit of banter, is it, Seb?
No, I mean, well, I'll be surprised if Kieran Dyer passes the fitness test to get on there in the first place. But yeah, I mean, we had Jimmy Bullard on last time, so it is a bit Ipswich overload, but
Jimmy Bullard's a nice guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Kieran Dyer doesn't scream at me, or you're a nice guy.
Not like Gary O'Neill shouts solid.
Wasn't Kieran Dyer the guy who beat up Lee Bowyer and he was on the same team as him?
Quite possibly.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of Newcastle knowledge from back in the day. That's what you listen to this podcast for, Newcastle. Yeah. Here's another question, Charlie. Do you know the I'm a Celebrity, or is that not a thing in America?
Yeah, it hasn't exactly crossed over, but it's slowly diffusing on the podcast.
Do you know what we're talking about, though?
Wait, what are you talking about then?
So I'm a Celebrity is basically what do you call it? Like
wait, hold on. I thought you were saying, "Are you a celebrity?" Oh, okay, no, we do.
See, this podcast has two purposes: one, to talk about Norwich City, and two, to educate Charlie Hatch on just general culture of Britain. So. Yeah, no, it's a programme hosted by the national treasures that are Anton Deck, I guess, where they send celebrities to Australia to compete in these challenges. And when I say celebrities, we're talking about C-list, possibly D-list celebrities who, they're coming from programmes that you wouldn't even say are good TV programmes. The Only Way is Essex, for example, or Geordie Shore, or whatever. They go into a jungle, they do some challenges, and then they get voted off. And that's about it. I mean,
it sounds really crap when you describe it, but it's actually quite decent. I enjoy it. So basically, to make it simpler, who would you chuck in a jungle and like to see survive for a few weeks, Charlie? Maybe Norwich related. Well, it doesn't even have to be Norwich related, to be honest.
Well, that's the thing, because I don't know who. I know some culture, but what I see is still kind of limited to what I see on social media. But who's something? Did you ever see that this is completely against politics, could care less, but did you see the video of the London mayor tackling the kid, or just bulldozing the little kid with rugby?
Yeah,
Boris Johnson.
It seems a bit of brute. Again, I have no idea what his politics are like, but I'd like to see someone like that. How beating children.
Take a dog.
Right. We don't need. I don't need the city of London coming in after us, but no, I'd like to see how he could do then.
Okay, so we'd like to see a bit of a burly, typical Brit going into the jungle. Also, we don't promote gun violence or child abuse
no
here on
child
the chat.
abuse.
So no child abuse or gun violence. This is simply part of Quote of the Week, which has taken a very strange turn. And that brings a wee chat, the first episode, to an end. It's been an interesting one. It's been a good one. Yeah, so you can listen to us on iTunes. This is probably where you're probably already listening to us from, or on Talk Norwich City. The YouTube channel will be up there. Subscribe to both. That way you will never miss out on the podcast or videos. Guys, it's been a pleasure.
It has. Yeah, thank you.
Not bad at all.
A good solid start. Gary Neal, thank you very much for your performance against Swansea and your solidness in life. Just remember, guys, we don't promote gun violence or child abuse. And yeah, we'll see you next week.